In today's lesson, we're going to use the distributive property and the product of decimals. So we're going to be multiplying decimals using the distributive property. The first thing I want you to do is put the distributive property in your ISN. The distributive property is when you distribute one number and multiply it by other numbers. When you distribute one number and multiply by other numbers. It's, let me give you an example. Let me see. I'm going to put a scratch paper here. Let's see, if you have 5 plus 1 and you want to take 5 times 2 and you want to take 1 times 2, the distributive property says that you could do it this way. And you distribute the 2 times 5. So you have two groups of this, two of these. So that would be 10 plus 2. So it would be 12. And if you have two of the 5 plus 1, 5 plus 1 is 6, and you have two of them, it would be 12. Okay, it's a little bit confusing, but the distributive property just means that you distribute one number and multiply it times parts of another. Okay, let's take a look. I think it'll make more sense as we use it. Okay, we're going to use partial products, meaning we're going to find little parts and multiply them times the same number. We're going to use partial products and the distributive property to calculate the product. Okay, so we have 200 times 32.6. We're going to break that up. 32.6 is really 32 plus 0.6, and you're going to get 32.6. Okay, so we just expanded it into expanded form, and we're going to multiply both of those times 200. Okay, so I'm going to put those in parentheses because I'm going to do those first. So I'm going to take 200 times 32, and I'm going to add it to 200 times 0.6. I'm just kind of breaking it down so I can kind of do it in my head instead of having to write out the problem. I can write out the problem and I'll show you that it works the same way one more time. Okay, so 2, I'm going to ignore my zeros for a minute. 2 times 32 is 64. And then I'll add on my zeros because it was 200. Plus 2 times 6 is 12. And because I have two zeros, it's like moving my decimal two places. So it's going to be two places. 1, 2 to 120. I know that's a little bit confusing, but we'll talk more about it as we go. And then I'm going to add them together. So I'm going to have nothing in the thousands place here. I have a 100 and a 400 makes 500. A 2 and a 0 makes 20, and then a 0 in the end. So my answer is 6,520. I'm going to show you over here that it works. Okay, so I'm going to take 200 times 32.6. And remember, when you multiply decimals, you do not need to line up your decimal because you're going to move over in your answer. Okay, 6 times 0, 6 times 0, 6 times 2. Okay. And because there was one decimal place in that, that makes that the 120 that we have. Okay, moving over, placeholder, I use an X. If you want to use a 0, you can. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 2 is 4. And we don't have that one represented over here because that's the 400 right here. We put it with the 32. Okay. 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 2 is 6. So that's our 6,000 there. We had one decimal place, so we're going to move over 1, and there is our 6,520. So it works the same way. This one was just a little bit simpler, and so it will be a lot easier. Okay. So here I took 2 times 6, got me 12. I had two zeros, so I put 1 0, but there was one decimal place I'd have to move back over. So I can put the two zeros. How about that? Move back over a decimal place because of my 6, my 0.6 here. Okay. we'll look at that a little bit here in just a minute in our next problem. Okay, partial products to solve this problem. Okay, this problem is area. We want to find the area of the rectangular patio. So we're going to use the partial products, and the distributive property. Okay, this one is an easy one to multiply by because it's a whole number. It's got it's a round number, meaning it's really easy to work with. It's got zeros on the end. This is a decimal number. So let's break this one up like we did our 32.6 up there. So I'm going to kind of split this, and we'll just pretend that I'm splitting it absolutely perfect. Oops. Okay, let's say that this part here is the 22 feet. That makes this part right here the 0.12, 0.12 feet. Okay, so we're going to take, if we look at our multiplication model, we're going to take 500 times 22, and we're going to take 500 times 0.12. Okay, so when I write that out, I'm going to do 500, let me write it over here, hope you can see that, okay. 500 times 22 plus 500 times 0.12. Okay, so 5, I'm just going to ignore my zeros for a minute, 5 times 20, we could break that down even more if we wanted to. Let's do that because it'll make it more easy. It'll make it easier. 500 times 20, we're going to break this one down right here, plus 500 times 2. Okay, so there's my 22 for right there. And then I'll put it on this part. Plus 500 times 0.12. Okay, I'm going to make that a little bit easier. Okay, so 5 times 2 is 10. Let me use my other color here so I can see what we've done. 5 times 2 is 10, and I'm going to add on a 0 for each one. 2 zeros here and 1 0 there. So I have 10,000. Plus 5 times 2 is 10, and 2 zeros. Plus 5 times 12 is 60, and 2 zeros. But then I get to move back 2, because if I was multiplying it out, I'd have 2 decimal places. So it's actually 60.0. And I'm going to add those together. So 10,000 and 1,000 makes 11,060 feet squared because it's area. Now if you can't add this horizontally like this, that's perfectly fine. We'll do 10,000 plus 1,000 plus 60. We still get the same answer. Oops, you didn't even see me work it out, I'm sorry. Still get the same answer. That's it for our lesson today. We're using the distributive property to find partial products and multiply. So multiply decimals with our whole numbers. If you have any questions, please put them in your ISN.